All right, hello again. Shelf Life and Death, Shelf Life and Mystery this time. So today I want to show you guys this book, and this is actually the book that I read that started me thinking about how much I would like to do sort of like a little video series on the books and stuff that I have, because this book blew my mind. And I'm going to try my best to describe it and talk about it, because it's kind of something that I think I would have to read again to wrap my mind around, just because of the way it's written. So it's an incredibly Inception-like book. Essentially what happens is it's a mystery, but the way it's written is from multiple perspectives over the same amount of time. So I will try my best to talk about this book. So what I'm talking about is this one. So, The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, by Stuart Turton. And this was Mr. Turton's first book that he wrote. And I can only imagine the frigging character notes he would have had to have kept to keep track of everything that he was writing about, okay? So essentially, this is like an M. Night Shyamalan level like twist book. I'm not gonna I will try to keep from ruining anything in this for you. But the premise is that this guy wakes up at the beginning of this story, not in his own body that he remembers being himself, in someone else's body, and it is set on an estate, kind of like, post turn of the century sort of era, maybe like 1910s, probably around 1910s, I believe 1920s. There are mentions of automobiles in it, but they are not popular yet. So probably about 1910s. And so he wakes up in the situation, lacking a lot of memory, just knowing he's not who he is supposed to be, on this estate as the butler. And he sort of stumbles throughout this day, trying to figure out what's going on, where he is, what's happening. And this is the day that repeats itself. So every time he falls asleep or falls unconscious, he wakes up as another person in this narrative, in this guest house, in this estate, and relives that day. So what happens is, at the end of every day, at the end of every cycle, this other character, Evelyn Hardcastle, the daughter of the Hardcastles who own this estate, dies. And over the course of this narrative, he discovers that he has to figure out who kills her. And then he'll be able to break this sort of cycle of rebirth into other characters. So essentially, he has infinite amount of time to find out who kills Evelyn every day, because the day it's like Groundhog Day, but murder mystery, with quite a large cast of characters. And so he, kind of forms allies between characters. And there seems to be another character in here who also knows what's going on. And as the book progresses, and it's quite brutal and pretty violent and pretty graphic, in a lot of stuff that happens. A lot of the characters are not nice people. They do pretty terrible things to each other. The family whose home this is, the Hardcastles, like, they all hate each other for various reasons. And it's supposed to be this family reunion that's celebrating this Evelyn's return from school in France or something like that. So he, discovers through this sort of mysterious narrator person. You can almost kind of think of them as not death, but like sort of a Faustian kind of character. That this gentleman, that this is actually a prison. And he's tasked to spend his, prison sentence here, essentially, trying to, solve the murder of this woman. And then he will be allowed to leave this loop. But there are 3 or 4 other people, other characters, who keep rotating through, narratives like he does every day, who are also trying to solve this mystery first. And if they do, they get to leave. And the other people are stuck here. So it's almost like a weird, competitive, like prison of the mind kind of thing. So it's a pretty involved read. I had no idea how this was going to end. No idea, like, who was being real and who was being fake and who was double, crossing people and things like that. So it's probably like the most involved murder mystery that I've ever read in my life. And it does take like kind of a weird narrative 180, like maybe about 2/3 of the way through the book. I'm not going to say it ruined it, but I was like, I would have sort of liked it better if they'd kind of continued without this sort of bizarre, like interjection that they had with the, I guess, jailers, and the sort of strange competitiveness between these 2 jailers, as they sort of, pushed the people that they wanted to win, while they were supposed to be remaining, nonpartisan kind of thing. They were supposed to observe, they weren't supposed to help, but they ended up backing different people in this and becoming competitive. And so, yeah, this was published not too long ago, actually, 2018. And like I said, like it's a difficult book to talk about. But I literally, I couldn't put it down. I just had to find out what happened next. Like, what character did this guy wake up as next? Or who did he wake up next as? And to make it even more complicated, if you fall unconscious at any point during your, time as one person, you'll just bump into the next person for the time that you're unconscious, because it's like you're asleep, right? Even though your day is not over yet. So one of the characters actually gets rather brutally beaten up, and is slipping in and out of consciousness. And so the main guy, God, I forget his name. It's really like, I forget who he thinks he is anyway. This the main character sort of keeps getting snapped back in between, the butler in and out of consciousness and like the next character in line and the next character in line. And it gets very interesting because he repeats the day, he knows like, oh, so I have to leave this person a note to do this when I'm this person the next day. So it sounds so complicated, honestly. But it the way it's written, like, you don't see anything coming. You really don't. And it's probably like the best level mystery I've ever read. Sorry, Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes. But I mean, even like, because they used this narrative trick of sort of Groundhog Day repeating through different characters, it makes it like much more difficult to figure out who did what when, and who is the murderer and who's not the murderer, and the question like is brought up, like, did Evelyn even really die? Like, is she actually dead or not? So, and then there's like, like thing on thing on thing. All the characters have like, they're hiding backstories, they're hiding secrets, scandals, relationships between themselves and things like that. So it's like such a great piece of like murder mystery scandal mayhem. And then also you've got that competitive layer on top of it of like, if this guy doesn't solve this, like, how is he ever going to get out? Like, is he redeeming himself? Like, will this redeem him? Like, You know, what's he in this jail for in the first place anyways? What did he do? It's so meta. like Inception doesn't even have anything on this, honestly. But if you really love mysteries and you really love that sort of weird, almost kind of like paranormal level on top of it as well too, and you like period stuff like Downton Abbey, like this is essentially kind of set in like a creepy, you know, maybe like Wuthering Heights kind of rundown Downton Abbey kind of estate in that sort of time period. So like check this book out. It will probably blow your mind, and I'm gonna have to definitely give this like another read maybe in like 6 months or so, even though I think I read it like probably about 6 months ago or maybe even more. I need to let that stuff settle and like reread it again just to really get a grasp on the story. But yeah, The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And I like cannot wait to see what this dude puts out next, because if it's anything like this, like I am sold. Like I am sold. Someone make this into a fucking movie, because that would be great. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If any of you read this, like I really want to know your thoughts on it. And what you thought about the writing style and, you know, how he constructed this crazy ass storyline. So yeah, leave that in the comments, and I will see you guys later.